Hi, welcome to GovCast, a video interview series from Government Fleet Magazine. I'm T. Dow, Executive Editor of Government Fleets, and today we'll be learning about the telematics bidding process with J.P. Galvin from TELUS. Focus by TELUS is a telematics platform built for public works and other route-centric industries like winter operations and waste management. Today, we'll be discussing what you need to do before starting the RFP process, common mistakes and good examples of RFPs, and how to evaluate your bids to get the telematics system you need. Before we start, however, remember to connect with us on social media. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss future episodes of GoCast. You can also find these episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you'd like to listen on the go. And now here is my conversation with JP. JP, let's start off with this question. Why is it a telematics RFP different from any other bid process? And how does this affect fleet professionals writing the RFP?
Because it is complex and multidimensional. So having GPS tracking for your fleet is a good beginning, but truly to get the most of the technology, you need to take a step further and start to digitize your operation. So for example, tracking your snow operations or provide visibility to your citizens, optimize your route for your construction sites, or flag the city problem while you collect waste and so on. So therefore, when we talk about RFP, it is a kind of a different beast than traditional solutions. So hence the complexity. First, why? It's because there are many technological and solution layers evolving at different speeds. So network, connectivity, roaming with these 5G deploying, hardware components and user devices, GPS units, sensors, spreaders, and vehicle compatibility. Of course, software, data, reporting, and all the information, security, usability, plus the integration with all the existing systems like procurement, authentication. So there are many departments involved and many times external stakeholders, such as private contractors. And they all come in with their own requirements. And on top of that, you need to add the regulations. So for example, like to communicate data to provincial or state departments. And last but not least, it is the capabilities of the partners or the solutions to evolve and adapt, which doesn't necessarily come with the cheapest solution.
So, very complicated process. What should they do before starting an RFP process?
I would say you can start with three things, okay? Explore what is possible, test, and set timelines. So when we talk about exploring, it may sound a little bit counterintuitive because typically we would list all the requirements and then we explore, but I would really suggest you start to explore first. So you want to know what is possible, okay, or not, to really help you frame your requirements and your priorities. So what it means? It means getting demos of the solution that you may be considering for your effort. So a good place to start, for example, is Sourcewell, which has already vetted fleet tracking options for the public sector, and it generally includes the most respected solutions on the market on their list. Second step is to test. So a good next step is to implement like a pilot program with a few of the selected vendors, so you get a first-hand knowledge of the tools and the technology. So what do I mean by that is you can actually start to look and tailor your RFP to really the solutions you need, the best, versus being left in a position where you have to pick either the lowest price bidder or the do-it-all RFP, so where you list all the possible requirements, which often lead to overprice or extended development efforts to meet all those possible requirements. And the last piece of advice is really to set out a timeline and work backward. So on when you would like that solution to be implemented. And of course, you need to give appropriate time to proceed with the partner selection, of course, but also, which is often missed, give time for contract negotiation and project plan definition. You also need to consider the seasonality and the availability of your fleet and your workers. Finally, as we all know, we're also in a situation where the worldwide hardware supply availability is limited. So you need, it is good practice to plan to make your purchase a little bit ahead. So globally now, if you would, in terms of timeline, you should allow at least 6 to 8 months to go through that process.
All right, thank you. So we know government fleets have a wide range of vehicles, everything from light duty to refuse trucks and plow trucks. How should fleet managers approach equipping multiple types of vehicles with telematics?
Well, I would say start and secure your most complex installation first. So for instance, snow plows or waste vehicles, which often require special skills such as mechanical or hydraulic skills. Okay? And it is best to find a solution for them first as part of your original bid. Why? It's because the partner you will select will know how to handle those complex installations. And as we all know, getting into for example, like the light duty fleets will be very easier for that partner as the other way around.
What are some common mistakes you've seen in RFPs, and what are some good examples of well-written ones?
Well, the more precise you are, the better. Okay. And it will also provide guidance to what matters the most for your organizations. So there are a couple of key things that I would say, that at least three, a good requirement scoring grid, okay, with weighting factors that have been run through all the public works departments that will be using the software. Second is a good section that details the KPI and what you really want to measure in terms of system, because as we know, one of the key goals of those solutions is to really get knowledge and information. So the more precise you are about what do you want to track, the better it is. And I would say the third with experience is requirements for project management and installation. So you can ensure your project is shepherded through requirements validation, installation, onboarding, and beyond. And as I said earlier, the worst situation is when we have an RFP that contains all the possible requirements for all the different needs that you may or not need. The I want it all list. This is likely to give you like vague response or overcost your solutions, or allow you to not discriminate very well between one partner versus another.
All right, so once the bids are in, do you have any advice for how to evaluate those results?
Yeah. So if your solicitation is for a multi-year contract, as most of them are usually, be sure you select someone with a significant portion of their business in the public sector arena. Why? It's because you want to make sure that the future roadmap aligns with the future needs of all those type of customers. I would say that's first. Second is you want to make sure that they have the financial backing to support future innovation, because those solutions are mission critical for the operations, and you want to be sure that your partner that you will select as first the financial stability to stay in business, but also has the investment budget to evolve the solutions going forward. And the last, I would say, is price versus cost, because it matters. As the adage says, you get what you're paying for. So be sure to balance the weighting factor for the price, as you don't want to necessarily go for the lowest bidder and be locked into a solution that doesn't evolve.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about kind of the bidding process, but there are other ways for government agencies to purchase a telematics system outside of this process, which you kind of mentioned earlier. Can you talk about some of these?
So yes, there are ways actually to get around the RFP process. One example is that you will have several cooperative purchasing groups that you can use to leverage an already solicited contract that follow the procurement process used and approved by the government entities. So for example, by piggybacking on those contracts, you can satisfy the rules for competitive bidding and get the desired platforms in weeks rather than in months. So for example, a few of them, Sourcewell, MyBoard, NASPO, and CPA, Omnia, and PCA. And all those co-op contracts already include competitive price that are volume-based that you may not get otherwise, even if through an RFP, especially if you're a smaller organization.
All right, I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, JP. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to today's episode of GovCast, sponsored by TELUS. I want to hear from our viewers. Let me know down in the comments any questions you have, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of GovCast. See you next time.